On this special episode of Between the Wheels, we're going behind the scenes. We're going to talk about how this show is made and what makes it unique, a complete history of how it was created, how it came to life, the top 10 moments, and of course, bloopers. We gotta show some bloopers. Enjoy this.
They're 6 years old.
So this year we filmed 17 unique episodes. The majority of them were filmed in Ontario, but we also filmed in Quebec. But we're just getting started. The big plan is to eventually travel around the world and film all these amazing stories and get them all on tape. Now this season is a very personal season because the majority of people in the show are people that I know. These are people that have been in my life, they have significance, and I wanted to share their stories. I don't know, I've never been a Mercedes fan, but I'm open-minded, so you gotta educate me.
Not a problem, Maxie.
Now, if there was one word to describe this show, it'd be nostalgia. It's what drives me.
Let's do this.
This show wasn't created by chance. It's taken a lifetime to develop. There's so many wild elements, stories in this, so many moving parts that if just one of those elements wasn't there, this show probably wouldn't exist. So this is my 1988 Jeep Cherokee XJ. I got this car back in 2005 as a graduation gift from my dad. I graduated high school, got it, I was 17 years old, except it didn't look like this. It was in much worse condition. Now the model of the show is we can't go back in time, but we can relive it. So my childhood was really unique. Growing up with European parents, you didn't have the typical influences from a normal Canadian family. You know, we didn't watch hockey, baseball, anything like that. For me, it was all about cars. My earliest memories all contained cars. I was always putting on these elaborate races, I would have these big collections. There was really nothing else that I was interested in. This was my only interest. I was absolutely obsessed with these things. I truly believe I was born this way. I didn't have any other interest. All I wanted to do was play with cars. Ever since I was a little kid, all I can remember is just playing with trucks, racing cars, things like that. My favorite show was Dukes of Hazzard. I actually remember accidentally taping over some home videos. But that's how much I like this stuff. I had this massive elaborate collection of VHS tapes. Cars were a big part of my life. There was no shortage of them around. They were all over the place. There was always unique vehicles in my property. But what really elevated my interest was my dad. I was really fortunate not just to have a dad, but to have him around when I was growing up as a kid. As a kid, growing up, Dad was my hero. He was extremely intelligent. He could do anything. He could fix anything. He can get into a car and drive like he's driven it all his life. He was very talented. But out of everything he could do, the best thing he did was spend a lot of time with us. Dad was my idol. He was never into classic cars or hot rods, nothing like that. For him, it was all motorsport. I remember spending countless hours watching Formula One, watching guys like Michael Schumacher, David Coulthard, Jacques Villeneuve. Hell, I could still hear the sound of that V10 engine, Michael Schumacher just flying around those corners. This is a sound that I just don't think I'll ever get out of my head. In the early 90s, he got into karting. There was a local go-karting club, NCKC, and they hosted races on Ontario and Quebec. They would host races with 4-stroke engines and 2-strokes as well. So my dad built a couple go-karts and he joined, but he didn't join alone. He brought me along for the ride.
They're 6 years old.
I was only 6 years old. Dad actually had to lie about my age to get me in because I was just too young. Keep in mind, this is the 90s, you can get away with that kind of stuff. These days that would never happen, but back then things like this were much more common. Now this interest quickly developed into a lifestyle. We'd always be traveling. Every weekend there would be a race, all summer would be busy. It was a high adrenaline lifestyle. There'd be lots of competitors. This was a huge event. And this really took over my life, and this was the primary focus of my life.
Bravo.
Time passed, and as I grew, my brother got involved too. This was a family event. This wasn't just some sort of interest. This pretty much took over our lifestyle, and this was a huge part of what our family was about back in the 90s. These races really brought us together, and these are some great memories that I'll cherish for the rest of my life. My dad was always very driven. So not only did he build his own go-kart, he built us our own go-karts, he'd take us to these races, and he always wanted the best for us. He was so committed to his dream that he bought his very own property and built his own racetrack. Like, how crazy is that? He bought a big 40-acre property and he started building a racetrack. Every weekend we'd be there. He'd be there with his friends, he'd be using heavy machinery, they'd be digging dirt, they would be loading dump trucks, they'd be doing all this with no experience, all these decrepit machines from the 30s and the 60s. It's just such a unique experience. How do you make that kind of thing up? You know, if these pictures weren't around, sometimes I wouldn't even believe this happened. It's incredible that he did this just for the sake of this dream. So obviously he was very passionate about this, was very special to him. We continued racing, and this lasted the better part of the 90s. The races got huge, the place was packed, there was people everywhere. There were so many competitors, this became a really massive thing. And I just looked at my dad and I said, wow, that's amazing that somebody was able to do this, to create this massive event just because of a dream he had. He was truly a pioneer for go-karting in our area. He really created something out of nothing. And what an amazing story. Somebody had immigrated just 5 years before then from another country, not even knowing how to speak the language. That's just an amazing thing. I look at that and I say to myself, wow, that's somebody I can look up to. The races continued. We'd eat, sleep, and breathe motorsport every single weekend. These were events. These were huge. We'd be working on the events, we'd be racing other places, we'd be traveling, we'd be building go-karts. It was crazy, but it was a great time. You know, this is very personal to me because I think my dad made it his mission for me to be the best I could be, and he gave me everything I needed for that to happen. 97 rolled around and we really turned up the intensity. He got me a new go-kart, a custom sprayed helmet, and I had everything I needed, all the tools I needed to do a good job. And in 1997, all that paid off when I won the championship. The same year that Jacques Villeneuve won the Formula One championship, my idol race car driver, I won the championship as well. Everything my dad had done over the years had paid off. Everything my family had done, all the hard work, my mom, my grandma, my brother, everybody contributed. This was a huge undertaking and a massive success. That was my life, racing. That was my life, racing. But go-karting wasn't the only thing. There was another thing that was a big influence in my life, and that was rally racing. This is something my dad was very passionate about. He always watched it. We used to watch the Canadian Rally Championships on TSN.
Their outrageous Pontiac Fiero were incredibly fast.
My favorite racers were the Sprongel brothers. They had a 1992 Audi S2 5-cylinder quattro. I thought this car was amazing. Now my dad really got into this well. He's one of those people that just pushes so hard when he has an interest that he actually built his own rally car. He built a Mazda 323 all-wheel drive. Now unfortunately, his co-driver wrapped around a tree before the first race, so they were never able to compete. And this is a really unfortunate thing, but he did all this just to do another dream, one other crazy idea. Now, he knew that I loved rally, so he did something really special for us. In 1994, he took us to our very first rally. This was one of the coolest things I'd ever seen in my life. Growing up as a kid, watching this on TV, finally able to experience this in real life, this was a dream come true. It was just incredible. I got to see all these people I saw on TV right here in person. And when I saw the Sprongel brothers fly around that turn, the dust go flying, and that 5-cylinder hitting it hard, I was hooked right there and then. I was absolutely obsessed with this vehicle. This just took my obsession of vehicles and motorsport to the next level. The rest of the 90s, it was all about racing. I'd watch F1, I'd watch NASCAR, I'd watch Indy racing. Heck, I'd even watch monster trucks. Anything with wheels, I wanted to watch it. This was a huge obsession of mine. It was a lifestyle after all. And then in 2011, I took it to the next step. I made it my mission to find myself a 5-cylinder Audi, and that's exactly what I did. I found a 1994 Audi S4 inline 5 20 valve. Now this is the 4-door version instead of the coupe, but it's pretty much the same thing the Sprongels had, so another one of my dreams came true. Now you can see how these influences when I was a kid really affected my whole lifestyle. Now as the years went by and life became more and more serious, cars really became less and less of a thing. Now we did go to see a rally finally in 2019. I would take my dad to the rally to the Tall Pines. I would see something that he showed me over 20 years ago. It was really cool to bring him here, re-experience those moments, but as an adult rather as a kid with my dad, the person who brought me here in the first place. Now unfortunately these memories were few and far between, and as time went by they became less and less relevant in my life as I got into the next stage of my life, and that was professional wrestling. I've always been a fan of professional wrestling since I was a kid, and I really got into it in the late 90s and the early 2000s. Now these guys really became my heroes. I would watch this stuff all the time. Watching these larger-than-life superstars just going at it, which I just thought was the coolest thing in the world. That very same year, my dad bought me a video camera, and I discovered another passion of mine, filmmaking. Now I was really fortunate because I ended up meeting a wrestler and promoter at the gym I would work at. He invited me to come out and film one of these shows. So this is where really my passion of filmmaking and wrestling came together. I absolutely love doing this, and this quickly became my whole lifestyle. So for the next decade, it was all about filming wrestling and putting on shows. I would help in any aspect I can. I'd go and help build the sets. I try to do as many jobs as I can, learn every skill that I can.
We've been a great team. For 2 people, we probably do the work of, I would say, 10 different people. And a lot of people think we're this gigantic, rich company, but it's really 2 guys with a bunch of volunteers.
So with no money, you have to learn every single aspect. Lighting, camera, sound, writing, directing, editing, everything. There wasn't one thing I couldn't do. Even though I had never done any of these things in the past, I forced myself to go and learn them. We were putting on TV quality shows with only a couple people running it. Now we got really good at making something big out of nothing, and it got quickly noticed. And I got inspiration in some really weird places. In the early 2000s, this show came out called Survivor Man, where Les Stroud would travel and he would do all these survival odysseys by himself. He would set up all the cameras himself and film it all himself. There was no one else helping him. And that's the part that I found really amazing, that he was able to make this TV show, TV quality, just himself, no crew. I found that amazing, and I got really inspired by that. I was fortunate enough to meet him, we became friends. I actually ended up filming for him in season 5 of Survivor Man. And that's where I met another influence of mine, Max Atwood. So Max is a Canadian cinematographer. He was basically given a camera and sent out to get these beautiful shots. Now he was an absolute pioneer in creating amazing footage, getting beauty shots, and getting everything you need just one person. Over the years I got a lot of advice from Max. He's taught me many things, and he's forced me and really motivated me to get better myself. So he definitely, in terms of cinematography, is my #1 influence. There's no one out there that's inspired me more than him. So Survivorman taught me the value of having a grand vision and making it all come together and being resourceful with what you have, not with money, but with creativity. Second thing that inspired me was the show Trailer Park Boys. Now, I didn't really understand the show at first. I actually hated it. I thought it was stupid until I learned the value of the show itself. When I got it, I thought it was hilarious and I thought it was brilliantly made. But what really got me with the show was the behind the scenes of the very first season. Now, I would go and do my own stuff as well. I actually traveled to Nova Scotia and got a lot of the filming locations there when I was really young in these embarrassing videos. It's kind of fun looking back now, seeing myself at 22 years old, trying to figure out life. I traveled there with my brother, and looking back, this is a great memory. Despite how comedic and embarrassing it is, this was some good times. So I decided to take television broadcasting at school, and there was one of the professors that really inspired me as well. His name's Lionel Goddard, and he just taught me the value of the story. He would always say, "What's the story?" This one saying has looped in my head for many years. Every time I'm filming something, that's the first thing I think. What's the story? The technical side isn't as important as the story, and it's the whole grand vision of this show and anything I film in my life. That one thing is the number one most important thing that's driven me my whole life in terms of video making. Now in the meantime, I had to pay the bills, so I was going around freelancing, working on different sets, and that's where I met Robin Smith. Robin Smith is a local videographer. He's a cinematographer in the Ottawa region, and in my opinion, he's the most talented and level-headed videographer out there. He taught me so many different things, all attention to detail. We do all these elaborate sets, and he would show how important lighting, sound, different types of settings are. He's really the one that taught me the technical side of the video business. So the best part about it, not only is he an awesome cinematographer, he's a great guy. So that's where I learned the technical aspect of making things TV quality on set. It was just another skill that I had acquired. Working on set, I got to work with a lot of different crew members. You get to learn a lot of things. You get to learn from people's mistakes, which is probably the best part about all. So I worked on a couple of local movies, and eventually I did my own stuff.
I'm fully booked, Derry. I can't help you.
What the hell am I supposed to do?
This is it, Joe. Hit the music.
What the hell's going on here?
That's one good-looking Shih Tzu. How many times do I have to tell you, Joe? Play the music louder.
This is what you're doing? This is your plan?
This is it, man. This is my business.
Picking up ladies?
That's it. Magna's priorities are work, ladies, Camaro. Derry's down here somewhere.
This is where I started to perfect the art of no crew filmmaking. So all the movies I made, there was absolutely no crew on set. They'd all just be on tripods, and that's where the whole basis of this show began. This is definitely a page out of Les Stroud's Survivorman's book. He's the one that taught me to do this, but being able to use the technical side with the whole grand vision of where to set up the cameras, how everything's gonna go, how you're gonna edit it, this is what it's all about. 2016, I started a YouTube channel called Home Renovision with Jeff Thorman. We filmed how-to renovation videos, trying to educate the public on how they could fix their houses with a limited budget. Now, he would film with his family on set, and the one thing I found about this, I found the behind-the-scenes story of all this was really captivating, so I decided to create a show called Reality Renovision. Reality Renovision was created to show the whole story of how everything was done. They were renovating a farmhouse, and this is where all the skills over the years paid off because we created a TV caliber show. The production value and presentation of the show was anything you would see on Discovery Channel, History Network, something like that, Netflix.
This time on Reality Renovision.
We're living like swamp rats out here. 800 square feet outdoor living space.
And all of this was just done with creativity, having absolutely no other crew on set. I was really proud to create this because it's taken a lifelong to perfect this style and format of being able to do something that's presentable, that's high quality, that people watch, that's engaging. This is where everything came together, and we created this show. This will always be a highlight of my life, and I'll always be proud of it. But at the same time, life became more complicated. My first son was born.
Yeah, it's you. Look. It's you. Who's that guy?
Obviously, as a parent, you have to dedicate more of your time, so you become split here and there, and it becomes a lot more difficult to do everything you want to do. In the meantime, the Home Renovision channel would continue to grow. At this point, his whole family was involved. Everyone was helping in some way or another. It was a true family dynamic there. But as the family dynamic grew, my role became more and more minimal, to the point where one day I was just a cameraman. You know, this is where I kind of went into a depression. My role became so minimal that I lost my ability to be creative. You know, it's nobody's fault, nobody did anything malicious, no one tried to harm me, it's just the natural progression of things. Sometimes things will grow and you have to understand that you gotta step back in order to step forward. And I just had to accept one day that I was no longer needed there basically. My job was done. I had done what I needed to do and there was no more room for me to grow and I just needed to step away. I had been there since the very beginning, so I was very emotionally involved and connected to this. But when I let go, I understood that I had made the right decision. And that's just the way life is. So it was around this time I was feeling real low. It was December 2021. I remember it was my friend Steph's birthday and her boyfriend Marc Antoine was there. And I really looked up to him as a businessman because he had created his own business. He was a DJ, and when COVID hit, basically DJs lost their jobs. So he created his own business. He was doing a 3D creation of like a DJ set. He was doing these 3D online shows. So he created something out of nothing. I just thought it was awesome that he was his own boss. He set his own hours. He did his own thing. I found that inspiring. And I had this idea for this show in my mind. I always liked cars, the stories, all that. And I just told him, I said, what do you think of this crazy idea? And he said, Max, you got something there. And he is what inspired me to actually go through with this. Because I thought this idea was kind of stupid at first, you know? It's hard to believe in yourself. When you always work with other people, for other people, you don't believe in yourself. Now, I had never had any success on my own in terms of my own projects. So to go out and say, hey, I'm gonna do something where I'm putting everything into it, that's a life decision. That's crazy difficult. And it's something that I've been torn with for a long time. But I decided to go for it, and that was because of him. But that didn't mean I didn't have the confidence until one thing happened. My son became obsessed with cars. He wasn't even 1 year old, and all of a sudden Lex picked up a car and he started playing cars, and that changed everything.
You gonna say thank you to Alex and Vivian? Yeah? I think that's a yes.
All he would do is play with these cars. It was like seeing myself in the mirror all over again. The same interest, the same obsession in my son. I remember filming the first episode. I filmed it on my BMW. It was April, and I put it all together and I wasn't sure about it. And he sat on my lap and he watched the whole thing. And I just couldn't believe it. And anytime I would put the intro theme on, he would just lose it. He absolutely loved watching this thing. So he's the one that really gave me the confidence. I know this was a 1 year old kid we're talking about. It was so fulfilling. And it's something that drove me to continue to make more of them. All of a sudden, this moment created a chain reaction event. He even played with the exact same cars that I played with as a kid that my parents had kept. What Lex did here is he reignited a passion I had as a kid. It went from cars not being significant to being the priority in my life. It was all about cars again. Now I had everything I needed to do this. I had all the tools, I had the experience, I had the motivation, and I had the future ahead of me. And I would go around filming with all these different people, always looking for what's the story, what can we film, what could be shared, what would people like to see.
It came from Tyler, Texas. It was kind of a love story with my mom and dad that they drove it back. Had a few bonds and great memories driving the car, and I lost my dad in 1999. I really miss him, and for me to get rid of the car, it's something I can't do.
I know none of us will be here around forever, but getting these videos, getting these memories that will soon be gone is the closest thing to immortality there is. I just think it's great to capture these moments, share them with the world, show the past, and bring a lot of families together, give them these great special memories that were around of their generations before them. I think we're pretty fortunate to be able to live in this era. We have the ability to capture moments on tape and then go back and watch the past all over again and re-enjoy it. I just feel like the luckiest guy in the world. I just feel like I get up every day and I have my dream job. Being able to combine not just the passion, but all these skills I had learned all these last 15 years, it's just a dream come true. And I'm just living the motto. You know, you can't go back in time, but you could relive it. Well, I feel like I'm living it right now. I always thought those VHS tapes were just amazing. And weirdly, a lot of those moments I experienced as a kid that were on those tapes are happening today. I feel like my life has become linear with these VHS tapes. I've been experiencing a lot of the same amazing moments with my son that I experienced with my own folks 30 years ago. This is the connection of the past and the present. It's given me hope for this world. It's shown me that all the good moments aren't trapped in the past, they're still happening every day. Times change, people change. Can't go back in time. But you can relive those special moments. You can go watch those moments and say, yeah, those were some amazing times. That said, we had some amazing and special moments that happened this year on the show, so I got a list of our top 10 best moments coming right up. The first guest we had on the show was Sebastian on the Gatineau side. Now Seb owns a classic car restoration shop. We filmed at his shop and we captured a story. And this was a great story to do because he had a lot of old VHS footage, much like I did myself. So this was a dream to get somebody else's story and show it on video. It was really cool to connect the past and the present, show that old footage, have him tell the stories, and have the visuals to go along with it. This is what the show was designed for, and this episode is the best representation of what this show is supposed to look like. The next significant moment was Albert and Leaf in the 1985 Pontiac Fiero. Now this is a really cool episode because Albert had bought this car in the 80s and now his grandson really likes the car and they have this special connection. I think it was really awesome to be able to capture this special relationship on tape, to show the relationship between Leaf and his grandfather. This is a great memory they're gonna have forever. And the show has always been about family, so being able to capture these special moments, and I know that means a lot for people like that. Now you must get some looks driving this thing in city.
Yeah, well, people now, because they don't see this. This car isn't around anymore, you know?
Something that happened this year that I didn't expect was the amazing burnout that Pat did. Now Pat's got a really cool ride. This is a very unique vehicle. This is the first right-hand drive car we did on the show. And Pat had a great story of how he got it and his whole journey. But one thing he did that I didn't expect was the burnout that he pulled off. This thing was insane. I was not expecting this. I was so blown away that I couldn't even film it properly. This is one of the coolest moments of the season. This is one of those real badass moments. So special shout out to Pat for doing that burnout. That was really something that requires some skill. So he did an awesome job, man. That's an awesome moment for sure. Another person we had on the show was a good friend of mine, Nick. Now, unfortunately, years ago, Nick's father had passed away, and we wanted to do this special episode on his old 442, but it was in the restoration process, and it just wasn't ready to go. So we did an episode on Nick's first vehicle, his Eldorado. Now, it didn't have all the old footage and many, many years of history like some of the other cars we've done, but something happened during this episode that was really special.
He drove this car quite a few times too. We always like borrowing it. So yeah, it's just another memory of him. So another reason that I'll probably never sell it.
At what point Nick was talking about his father and he was driving. And when we were driving there, I felt like we were not alone. Like I felt like someone was there with us. And then I started editing this episode. I was going through the footage and there was this one shot where when he was talking about his father, the light started glaring in a really unique way. And I had never seen this in any of the episodes before or after since I filmed this. If you look at it, it just might be luck, but when he was talking, I felt like his dad was right there. Like that was such a cool moment. It was just really intense. Even thinking about it now, like I'm getting chills because I felt like there was something significant happening there. And I'm really excited that we're able to do his car next year, so we will be doing the 442 on the next season. So that story will be shared. It's a very special car. But on the subject of heartfelt tributes, none were more impressive than Randy's 1985 CL9000. Not only did Randy purchase a derelict truck for $1,000 that most people will run and hide from, he actually restored it. It took him 12 years to do this amazing project.
Let's do this.
I didn't see the truck because I wasn't driving all the way out to Manitoba to look at a $1,000 truck.
Was it running?
No. When I first seen it, I just about cried because the doors were seized. Absolutely nothing worked. And I said to my dad, I think I made a big mistake. And he said, no, you're gonna do it. My dad came over just when I first got it, the wheels on it. I bought new tires and put them on, and I moved it for the first time. And he was there a week before.
Okay.
And passed away a week after, and I never got to take him for a ride in it.
Oh. So in the form of a tribute, Randy dedicated this truck to his father, Boyd. Now this story is a true Rocky story. He had no experience doing this. It took him 12 years. All these skills he didn't have, did it all by himself. What he did here was truly remarkable. And the best part about this is one of the early episodes. It ended up going online and going completely viral. Within a week, it had 100,000 views. This story touched so many people. I could not believe the comments. Massive stories, people reminiscing, a lot of old timers looking back at times they had with their trucks. So not only was this a huge achievement for Randy, but this was a huge achievement for us. This is why the show was created. I could not be more proud than with this episode of the CL9000. Another great achievement to be able to do was share the story of my Jeep. Now this was the very first full episode that we went to where we talked about the story. This is where I shared my own story. This car is very special to me, and it's why I understand other people's stories, because the significance it has in my life. Now this is something that took 17 years to restore. This is something I spent a lot of time with my dad, and this is the one thing we still kind of have in common that we were able to do at the time. So these are some special moments. It was great to have them on camera and share them with everybody, and that's what the show is all about. Joe's Boneyard. This place was something else. This is something we stumbled upon not for the show itself, but a spin-off show we created while filming this. Doing the show, I've met a lot of amazing people with incredible stories, and it's inspired me to do a dream of mine, and that's to build a muscle car. And I started looking for a 1968 to 1972 Chevy Nova. And I found this boneyard with 400 classic cars that are just derelict, just lying around. Being able to visit this place and go back in time, this was incredible. Absolutely my favorite shoot of all time, being able to see all these old cars and think about what kind of stories they might have, look at the condition, everything. It was really intense. And being able to get these shots and preserve them on camera forever, I just think that's the next step. That's really amazing. You know, this place is created to preserve the past. So I got very attached to it, being a nostalgic person, doing this show. This is what it's all about. This is something someone else did to preserve the past, and I was able to film it. It's just a coming together of worlds, and really special thing. So we're really thankful that Joe was able to let us do this, let us film over there, because it's not a public place for videographers. Much like myself, my son Lex got obsessed with rally. At one point, it was the only thing he was watching. He would watch it more than cartoons. He'd always say, cars, and he'd want to watch the rally cars. So I decided to take him to the rally, the Tall Pines. So this year we went to the rally. I took my wife. We also went with her brother and her dad who had never been to a rally. This was a really special moment we were able to do. It was really nice to bring the family, show them something they had never seen before, and introduce rally to a new generation of fans. The next story is much like the show. It's a lifelong passion. Good friend of mine, Pat, had known him since elementary school. He's a little guy. All I remember him talking about is Corvettes. He always wanted the Stingray Corvette. One day, Max, I'm gonna get my vet. I'm gonna get my vet. So what happened? All these years later, he got his Corvette. He made his dream come true. He took an old car, he fixed it, he sold it, and then he bought his dream car with it. And even from there, he's not finished. You know, he's swapping parts, he's gonna swap the engine. I just think it's really inspiring what he's able to do. And I'm so proud of him for being able to not only do this, but to achieve his dream. You know, he had that goal his whole life, all these years, and he was able to achieve it. That's a true story of Between the Wheels. So that brings us to number one, my favorite moment of all time, and that's filming in the Bronco episode. This Bronco episode was not meant to be a big history lesson because I had just got this car and had no history. But in order to get here, in order to get the Bronco, it was a big journey. It's not just something that happened overnight. This car was purchased from a lifelong of working hard, setting goals, following those goals, and following through those goals. That's what the Bronco represented. And throughout that whole journey, there was a lot of people that didn't believe in a lot of my goals. Sometimes they would, sometimes they wouldn't. It doesn't really matter. There was always one person in my life that's motivated me to go after my dreams. She has never doubted anything I've ever thought of in the past. She's only motivated me, and that's my grandmother. My grandmother, Christina's been in my life since I was a little kid. I spent more time with her than I did my own parents. She lived with us, and she took care of us as kids, and she was always a big part of my life. And she's always supported anything I've ever wanted to do in my life. And I lived most of my life with her, so she saw a lot of the struggles I went through, the long hours, how much it would take out of me. And a lot of people, you know, would tell me, don't do that, don't work on this, you're not making money. A lot of people would shut me down, and it was easy to just give up one day. But she was always one that believed in me. So having that motivation was really important to me. So when this show came about and I said I'm going after my dreams and I told her about it, the one thing I wanted to do was take her for a ride. But before I could do that, early 2021, she had an aneurysm and ended up in the hospital. This was absolutely the most difficult time of my life because all of a sudden life and death situations were right in front of me. They gave her surgery and they said her chances of survival were very low. I remember being with her almost every day. It was either my brother or myself. Every day we'd switch. One of us would leave, another one would come back, just to give her that motivation to keep going. And there were some really rough times and we thought we'd lose her. The doctors didn't think she had much of a chance to make it. But the thing is, she pulled through. And when she came out of the hospital in April, I remember driving up with the Bronco, big smile on my face, was finally able to take her for a ride and show her what her motivation did, that pushing me to new limits and never giving up on my dreams, this is what it created. This is my favorite memory of all time. There's nothing that will ever top that. Where's Lex? Close the door. So I'm one of those people that truly believes that everything happens for a reason. The last thing I wanted to go over was the theme song of the show. The theme song is not something that happened by chance, it's something that also has a story to it. Good friend of mine, Anthony, I grew up with him. I've known him since 2001. We used to play music together. I remember we would jam and I was just terrible, but he had amazing talent. And I remember saying, wow, this guy can do anything. If you guys ever watch wrestling, have you ever heard of Jim Johnson, the guy that created all the wrestling themes, like the Undertaker theme, the Kane, all these? He's literally like that guy. He can create absolutely anything. And over the years, he's done a lot of work for me. He's contributed in almost every project I've done. He's created music for films we've done, for TV shows, pilots that I've done, and this was no exception. When I came with him to the idea of doing the theme for Between the Wheels, I kind of gave him a template. I said, let's do something like Miami Vice, you know, that Jan Hammer theme song, you know, something cool, a lot of cool cars, hard hitting, that 80s style. And what he gave back to me was completely different than what I asked for. He came back with this nostalgic sounding theme. And I remember thinking to myself, I was listening to it and it wasn't anything what I asked him. And as I continued to listen to the theme, I got emotional because I was so moved by the theme. It was exactly what I was looking for without even realizing it. He had known all these years kind of my style and what I like. I like the 80s, I like synthwave. So he interpreted something as much more nostalgic than cool. And as this theme got created, I wanted to put cool shots on, and I didn't have those shots because I hadn't filmed those episodes yet. So what I started doing is I started putting on this old footage, the old VHS footage, all those shots you see when I was a kid, and all of a sudden, the vision was created. Now we truly had something we could be proud of. And I love watching that theme. Every time I see it, I just think it's absolute fire. This is the coolest thing, my absolute favorite song of all time. I could watch it a million times, and I just love it. Every year we're gonna update it with different clips, so different people's stories, because the first year there were no clips. So next year we're gonna have all the clips from the previous year we just did. So that's how it's gonna work. So Anthony absolutely knocked it out of the park. His talent can't go unrecognized. And that brings us to the very final part of the show. What does the future bring? What are we gonna do in the future? What's next? Well, we have a bit of a bucket list. So the first thing on the bucket list, I would love to film a couple celebrity videos if possible. I don't want celebrities just because, you know, they're celebrities and they have expensive cars or whatever. I want something that has a story. So I think it'd be really cool to do the Trailer Park Boys shitmobile, you know, that crappy car that Ricky drives around. I think it'd be really neat. At the same time, I'd love to do JP Trombley's, who plays Julie on the show, his Camaro RS. He's got a really nice Camaro. He's had that for a long time. I think it'd be cool to hear that story. That's definitely a dream of mine. Another person I'd like to have on the show is Captain Sig Hansen. Now, of course, he's a captain of the Northwestern on the show Deadliest Catch, so he's been there since 2005. I think we deserve having him on the show because my wife and I have sat through 18 seasons of Deadliest Catch, and we've even watched his latest show, The Viking Returns. I'd love to have Sig because he also has a classic car, but for him, it'd be awesome to see him because he's one of those people that really appreciates the stories, you know. He, on his own show, he recently goes back to Norway to reconnect with his roots, and he talks a lot about his father and his origins and everything. You can see him getting very emotional. There's lots of old, you know, footage and pictures, which is what we do. So I think we have that in common. That'd be really cool to have an episode like that. I think that's what it's all about. We definitely both have that passion. He's also a great producer on the show, so I think a lot of moments were captured because of him. Deadliest Catch it's a great show. It's definitely a big inspiration what we're doing because it kind of revolutionized the reality show. It's the beginning of reality television, really, one of the first shows. And you know, I think it's a big part of history in our industry. So it'd be a real honor to do Sig. Now, if we're on the subject of celebrities, there's one person I love to meet, and that's Stone Cold Steve Austin. I'd love to do an episode on one of his trucks. I know he's a car guy as well. He's really into trucks. It'd just be awesome to hang out with him. What a cool episode that would be. So that's just like a little, you know, guilty pleasure being a wrestling fan. I think that'd be really sweet to see. Another story I'd love to do is the Sprungle Brothers Audi S2. Obviously, this car had a big significant part of my life, and I know those guys still have that car, so it'd be a really cool episode to do. They're absolute rally legends in the era, but it's not very well documented, so it'd be a cool story to do. Get that story on tape and show the world basically their significance in the rally industry here in North America. Another kind of crazy idea I'd love to do, I'd love to revisit the whole go-karting storyline. Now I still have one of the go-karts that we had from back in the day. It's just sitting in my garage. This thing hasn't been driven in about 10 years. I think it'd be cool to revisit, maybe go for a race, something like that. Kind of reconnect my racing roots. Not sure really exactly what we do there yet, but I think that'd be a really interesting episode to do. Now in terms of family and support, one person that doesn't get enough credit is my mom. She's always been with me every step of the way, and then now she's taking care of my son. She's a big part of my life, and she just never really gets that credit that she's deserved. And she's always driven these crappy cars in her life. She had this awful, you know, Versa, and I think right now she's driving a 2009 Jetta that's just completely rusted out. It's burning oil. I would love to one day be able to give her a new car, to buy her car. So that would be a really cool special thank you I'd love to do. That's an absolute dream of mine that I would love to do. So I think that would be a great episode to do. Another episode I'd love to do is something that has old film footage, you know, something like from the 50s, a family member driving the same car, you know, over half a century ago. It'd be really cool to connect the past and the present with that vintage footage. I think that'd be a great episode to do. And the last idea, it's completely selfish. I wish I could drive one of those classic Formula One cars that I heard back in the 90s. The V10s, the old Schumacher cars. Just to hear that sound and be able to drive at that speed, I think that experience would be just incredible. So that has nothing to do with other people's stories. That's just a very selfish idea. But if we're doing a bucket list, why not make something for myself as well? And that concludes our crazy adventure. I hope you enjoyed this behind the scenes look at Between the Wheels. This show wouldn't be possible with all the fans watching, all your great comments, everything. We thank you very much. If you have a story you want to submit, go on our website, www.subdivisionauto.com, submit your story. We are looking for vintage footage. I want old pictures, old footage, as much as possible. Connect the past and the present. get some amazing stories. And at the same time, this show is not perfect, far from it. So I think I'm gonna leave you with the bloopers, because there was a lot of moments where, you know what, I'm just not good at what I do. It's gonna happen, we're gonna make mistakes. I hope you guys enjoy this. Thanks for watching. Let's go for a drive. Okay, I almost destroyed my cameras. That was bad. There we go.
Welcome to Grand Prix Scotland.
You've never driven a manual, you just have to know where the gears are. Ah. All right, well that was an awesome drive. Is a 1993 3.9 liter Isuzu. Jesus Christ.
And nose itch like you can't believe, man.
Oh, go ahead and scratch it, man. They made this vehicle from 1984 until 2001, and we got like crime going on in the background. It's not good. Oh, sorry, dude.
Oh, man, geez. You all right?
Oh, I don't, it's not about me. So am I close now? Closer?
Tate grabbed my titty hair. Oh, son of a Okay, go talk.
Blooper reel.
Yeah.
Okay.
2, 3, and 4.
Okay. This week on Between the Wheels, we're going to Navan, Ontario to check out a 1985 Pontiac Fiero. And this is a roundabout. Where the hell am I going? Masterpiece that stood the test of time. This was my childhood. There's a fly in here. Nothing more manly than a bunch of guys looking at an engine of a car.
That's it, eh? Or into the audience. Is there anybody coming? Oh, a second. Come on.
That's because our next guest went here. He's had his car since... Can you stop hammering for 2 seconds, please? We're heading to Renfrew, Ontario, Canada to check out a 2002 Cadillac L... and I forgot the name of it.
Oh, okay. See, that's what I mean. Still mic'd up here, don't be saying that. Oh, shit. You're stupid. Oh, shit. Such a pain.
So this is Margaret Sharon's car. She's the only female competitor, and she's gonna be racing against her husband. Ah, I up, I told you.
Better tell him to eliminate that, eh?
Yeah.
Holy mackerel.
Oh, we can open the windows now. Yeah. There you go.
That was pretty hard.
It barely moved.
See how natural I am. I don't even realize what's happening.
Oh, there goes one GoPro. Damn it. Camera's going nuts. Okay. It's going crazy.
You don't have a camera crew?
No.
What the heck?
This is the camera crew.
You told me there was a camera crew, Max. And you told me there was snacks.
We're not.
Where's my snacks?
We're not Vin Diesel.
And where's the beer I requested?
The beer, yeah.
Jug City.
Oh yeah, Jug City right there, boys. That's where they have big titties, man.
So very thankful for all this. This is great. This is a real, I don't know, this is, I don't even know what the talking about. This is